Alright, so we're going to start things off here with decent hand. Okay, so we've got some aggressive creatures here in both the Bomat Courier and the Flameblade Adepts. So I like starting with the Courier just to start getting cards under it, just in case we want to cash the Courier in. And by that I mean sacrifice it, discard our hand, and then we get the cards that are underneath the Bomat Courier in that situation. So it's a nice card to lead off on, get a few attacks with it, and then we can use it as a way to refill our hand later in the game. It's also a madness outlet. Looks like we're not the only ones playing black and red. So I like getting this Flameblade Adept into play. The glaring weakness in the hand is the lack of a third or fourth land, for that matter. We'd like to get the Faith of the Devoted into play before we start lightning axing things or manacing out cards, but we may not have that luxury. And it looks like our opponent's playing some sort of graveyard / maybe madness deck as well. Scarab Feast is a card you don't see too often, that's for sure. So we're not really that keen on training the Bomat Courier for the Insolent Neonate. It's unclear exactly how good this Neonate is for our opponent in this spot. But we could actually just cash the Courier in if our opponent makes the block. We could also go for the Lightning Axe play, but I think I prefer just making the conservative attack of attacking with Flameblade Adept and just play the second Flameblade Adept. It's not exciting, but we can wait for next turn, essentially, here. Our opponent can't block, of course. The Flameblade Adept does have Menace. And then by having and it looks like our opponent's going to sacrifice and discard a Drownyard Temple, so definitely not the typical deck, but you know what? Our deck isn't really typical either, so Black-Red has a few different directions you can go in, clearly. And Drownyard Temple is a card our opponent may put into play here, but there's the Desert Celadon, so that's going to get cycled. Cathartic Reunion, okay. So Heartpiercer Manticore and Noxious Gearhulk getting discarded there. Lots of big creatures. And we drew a Blood Rage Brawler, which I like running out in this spot. We can go ahead and discard the Hazoret because we're pretty far away from casting that guy. And that's going to make the Flameblade Adepts into two power creatures. So we get in for a nice chunk here, 5 points. But I guess we may be about to see what our opponent's building up to, because clearly there's some shenanigans going on here. So we drew another copy of Bomat Courier. We could play that. We could also just Lightning Axe away the Insolent Neonate, and then Madness out the Alms of the Vein. That would pump up these Flameblade Adepts. So that's another option that we do have that option available to us. the safest attack to me is still just playing this Bomat Courier and attacking with the 2 Flame Blades, and this Bomat Courier leaving the one with a lot of cards under it still in play. So I think I'm going to go with that line. And if our opponent wants to trade Neonate for this Bomat Courier, we don't really mind. I'm expecting a chump block on the Blood Rage Brawler, to be honest. Yep, so there's the chump block. Now, what's going to happen? Another Drown Yard Temple getting discarded. So our opponent can activate that Drown Yard Temple. And that is going to be what's going to happen. So perhaps we should have gone for the Lightning Axe line plus Alms of the Vein. That would have potentially been lethal if our opponent didn't have anything. But we still have this next turn. So hopefully we don't get super punished. Alright, it's going to be Ever After. So the Noxious Gearhulk and the Heartpiercer Manticore are entering the battlefield here. So this is a pretty unfortunate situation. Our opponent is going to, or is at least trying to, kill off our 2 most important creatures, and I think we just have to let it happen. So that's going to mean the Bomat Courier goes down and the Blood Rage Brawler goes down. And our opponent goes back up to 12. So a little bit of an unfortunate turn of events in this situation. But now we do have a pretty good target for the Lightning Axe if we want to go that direction. Yeah, I think we do. I think I'm going to go for the Lightning Axe. So we can Lightning Pierce the Heartpiercer, discard the Alms of the Vein. And I believe we might actually have lethal. No, we need one. We would need one more 3-point burn spell here. So we can force our opponent to lose 3 with the Alms of the Vein. Then play the Mountain. So we have the option now of sacrificing the Bomat Courier right now. But I think we just deal the 5. We don't have the black, so it's not that the Faith of the Devoted is super important, but if we're able to draw, say, 3 cards next turn from an attack with Bomat Courier, that would be great. Although here's an Archfiend of Ifnir, so we're getting... Now we're actually kind of forced to sacrifice the Bomat Courier, so this didn't work out the way we wanted it to. Hopefully we get some gas here. Canyon Slough is decent. It can pump up the Flame Blade Adepts by cycling it. And there's an Unlicensed Disintegration as well. So I'm gonna go ahead and cycle this Canyon Slough. So yeah, we probably played this game not quite aggressively enough, and now we're in a little bit of a tough spot. That being said, we have plenty of cards that finish our opponent off. So it's going to be interesting to see what else our opponent has to go with this Archfiend. Hopefully that Noxious Gearhulk doesn't come back, that Heartpiercer doesn't come back. We're so close, but yet still a little bit far away looking at this Noxious Gearhulk. And it's actually going to go after our opponent's own Archfiend, so that our opponent now gains a bunch of life, which is going to make things more difficult. And we're really... Now we wish we hadn't even cycled that Canyon Slough because of the need for the black mana. But we're forced to pass the turn. And here's another Archfiend coming down. So yeah, looking back, that critical turn where we opted not to go for the Lightning Axe line on Insolent Neonate was probably the biggest mistake of the game, and it looks like it's... Yep, we're just dead here, so hopefully we can bounce back. Interesting deck that our opponent's playing, that's for sure. So I think we want Chandra's. And the Hazoret seems good too. It seems pretty difficult to answer for our opponent. Magma Spray doesn't seem great. Scrounger, it seems a little bit unnecessary. Unlicensed kills like the Archfiend, so they seem fine to me, but definitely frustrating not to have the black. I think we can cut on some removal. So I'm going to cut Lightning Axe. And actually, Cut Ribbons does kill a lot of our opponent's creatures, so I think we can shave down on the Unlicensed. Cut one Faith of the Devoted. This seems fine to me. Still want to be aggressive with our creatures. Alright, I like this hand actually quite a bit. We're able to get on the board quickly with a 4-power creature, so we don't even have to... We're actually fine with discarding cards to these to trigger the Hazoret. So I want to lead on the Fury Blade Vampire. As we can always use this Fire Temper with Madness on the Blood Rage Brawler. And I'm happy we have the Fury Blade Vampire for sure now because it has Trample. So the Insolent Neonate is not going to be a particularly good blocker. The issue is we don't really have that many cards we want to discard because our hand is great. So, I feel like we do still want to discard, so I'm going to discard the Fiery Temper. And it may be that we actually just pitch either the Hazoret or probably the Chandra is slightly worse. And only slightly. They're both very good, But I think we want to commit this Blood Rage Brawler to the board and pitch the Chandra. That is definitely very annoying. Sweltering Suns takes out both of our threats. But we're going to be able to land this Hazoret for sure. And hopefully do some good work with it. I'm just going to let our opponent know about this mountain in hand. So our opponent's all the way down to 8. And Hazoret is pretty difficult to block. Even the 4 power creatures we saw from our opponent don't block Hazoret particularly well. So we can go ahead and throw the mountain at our opponent. So this attack threatens to put our opponent all the way down to 1, and I think we have this game. I don't want to jinx it. All right, so game 3. Think we can actually board out a key because our opponent isn't blocking us that much. It feels like it's more of a race. Our opponent's late game is pretty good. We have to be a little bit worried about Sweltering Suns. So, I do like Tormenting Voice as a way to refuel, so I'm gonna board in a 3rd copy. This is another solid hand, I think. We can start on the Bomat Courier and potentially madness out both of these. Fiery Tempers even. Blood Rage Brawler is a nice pickup. We're going to try to leave mana up for this Bomat Courier to be able to sacrifice it if our opponent plays removal, but we may not be able to. And as we saw in the first game, that's definitely something that comes up where our opponent has removal for the Bomat Courier, and it puts us in a tricky situation. So Canyon Slough is a good draw. I think we want to attack with the Bomat and then play the Flame Blade. That way, next turn we can madness out of Fiery Temper. We also want to be aware of that Sweltering Suns that could be lurking on our opponent's hand. So not quite ready to play the Blood Rage Brawler. And it gives us an opening to play the Canyon Slough, and that's going to give us black mana. So maybe this is like a cathartic reunion type effect. Yep, okay. So our opponent's discarding another Reunion and an Ever After. So still scared of Sweltering Suns, to be honest. And the fact that our opponent could have Sweltering Suns is definitely something we have to be thinking about. We could play the Blood Rage Brawler, but that opens us up even more to that card, which we saw, and for that reason, I think we'd rather just hold off on the Blood Rage Brawler. It's close. Like, we're playing a little bit passively by doing it. But I am just going to attack here and pass the turn. This way, we also have the double Fiery Temper still, which could be relevant. Our opponent cycling the Canyon Slough, though, means maybe they don't actually have the removal spell in the Sweltering Sun, so kind of regretting it, our decision, but it's definitely results-oriented thinking. So our opponent's already down to 16. If we play the Blood Rage Brawler, we can then Madness the Fiery Temper, and this attack would put our opponent down to 10. The issue is that if they do, once again, have the Sweltering Suns, we're back to being in a pretty rough situation. Huh. I mean, I don't think we're that scared of a big creature, but I am going to go with the Blood Rage Brawler this turn. Basically, I think that if our opponent had the Sweltering Suns, they probably would have cast it last turn. But we don't really know exactly what's in our opponent's deck, so we'll see how this works out. I feel very confident taking this line that if our opponent doesn't have removal here, we're just going to be able to win the game. Even if our opponent does have removal, we have multiple burn spells in hand. So our opponent's going to go for a cycle, probably trying to cycle into the Sweltering Suns. All right, this is great for us. I believe we have our opponent just dead. We can kill the Archfiend. And then we have Fiery Temper as well, plus Tormenting Voice. This should do it. So we can do this in a number of ways. I'm just gonna go for the Tormenting Voice, which it's gonna make the Flame-Bellied Adept into a 2-power creature. Could have also gone for sacrificing the Bomat Courier. And that's going to be the match.